quick little review. Boy Minei Abayim Rabba, Yud Testament Bays, 19b, first wide line. So Boy Minei Abayim Rabba, Herach B'Yom Dem B'Kashir Pshutin L'Rav Meir Mahu. Let's say you added this board that you were supposed to add in the middle, which sounds like that's what Rav Meir said you should do, but instead of putting it in the middle, you put it on the side, adding to the actual diomet, to the L-shaped surrounding that you had in this well, which we've explained. You're creating these makeshift walls to be able to use the well on Shabbos. So the Shaila that Abai asked Rabbi, this is going to be one of many Shailas that Abai is asking Rabbi here in this Gemara. We're just going to keep peppering Rabbi with questions. So if you extended the Diomed, the exact same amount that you should have put in as a standing wall, is that a big deal? So he said, let's take a look at the Mishnah. It says bepasin. Okay, as long as you add, if you had more than 10 amas, for Meir's suggestion, there was a requirement that you have to add. Sounds like Shabbat bepasin, that you have to add to the walls, and the walls that you already have. My love the mach b'd yomdin. That the words imply that you extended the already L-shaped wall, and that's how you did it, which seems like that's actually the preferred method according to Rav Meir. Where it says, "Lo, the mapish v'yavid pshutin." You extended it away a little bit, and you made stand-alone walls, pshutin, not L-shaped, longer L-shaped walls, but you added this board that you picked up in Home Depot as a standalone. Really, is that the language that implies? Then you shouldn't say Ashaba Bipasin, which sounds like you're extending a pre-existing wall. You should have said Ashaba Pasin. You add walls. That would have been a much better terminology. Achiyaba Pasin boile. So tani Achiyaba Pasin. So learn Enachami. That's really what it means, and learn, sort of inject that language into the Bryce, and you're good to go. It's a little bit, what's a bays here and there. So you take out the bays, and you read it ad shiar b'pasin, until you add walls. Or ikadiyamre, another version of what just went down. Amalei tinisua. So Abaya asked the Shaila. The resolution to the Shaila was, let's take a look at the Mishnah. Tinisua b'vad shiar b'pasin. This exact same language could be, I guess, looked at from another perspective. My love the mapish v'avid pshutin. Okay, l'chayra achiara pasa means you have to add walls. So if you're adding walls, l'chayra you moved a standalone wall away and add a standalone wall, a pshutin, not an L-shaped extension. Not part of the L, but standalone. Right. So here the Gemara is looking at the exact same language and inferring the opposite conclusion that we did just a minute ago. That here the assumption based on the language is that you're adding a standalone wall, to which the Gemara says, "Lo, the mach b'd yomdin." Okay, no, it doesn't mean you're adding a standalone wall. It means you're extending the wall by adding to the L-shaped surrounding. And I'll prove it to you. So it's interesting. What the Havina here is a little bit harder to understand, because the Gemara now is even proving its position based on the exact same assumption we had made earlier. I'll show you that I'm right, that you're adding an extension as opposed to a standalone wall. Since it says the word bipasin with a bays as opposed to pasin without the bays, shma mina. Indeed, this is a good resolution, and meaning that it does indicate that you're better off adding to the wall than not. But it seems like the bays is of a pshutin, means that you could indeed as well make a standalone wall. It doesn't seem to indicate that you have to do a standalone wall. It seems like that's certainly acceptable as well. Okay, but again, we're not making these pasi bros anytime. I'm not aware of any place that actually does this nowadays. You don't have all the regalim going to Yerushalayim, unfortunately. Okay, so let's catch up on the Rashis. Herech b'd yomdin, I think that's what we're up to. Okay, right, so about the smack in the middle of the page, Herech b'd yomdin. So the shah was, if you extend the walls, how do you do it? Yosim yamel chol tzad. Do you add an amma from all sides? Ad she'emid ruach shebenetayim ales ramas. till you get the break to 10 amas or less, because we know that according to Rav Meir, more than a 10 amma break is not going to cut it. It's too big. You got to follow the typical rules of engagement, and that is that it cannot be more than 10 amas according to Rav Meir. So Mahu, if you added that wall to the Diomed, what's halacha? Dafka pshutin, right? So the whole question really never was only extending the L, but maybe can you also, as an option, extend the L? So dafka pshutin kamar, do we say that it must be a standalone wall? The kivin der chikon yosem mishir chacham. Once you made the break more than the rabbis designated, binin heker bene bene, you need a real recognition between them, and therefore you must make a standalone wall. Okay, and it's not going to be good enough to extend the L. That's not going to cut it. You need to have a standalone wall that's clearly visible to the world that you added a whole other wall. Okay, El marchik portum in a pas. You have to extend somewhat from the L, the nosin sham pashin, and put up a freestanding wall. Okay, and so to the other side, mishum delavei akera, that should be recognizable. Oh, Dilmor, maybe you say no, keeping the sof eser revachu, the ikka lo mitzer. Maybe at the end of the day, I just care about the numbers. Isn't it just a numbers game at the end of the day? That which means basically you need to have 10 or less amas separating the walls. So maybe at the end of the day, it's all good enough to just extend the wall without any freestanding situations, and that really l'chor accomplishes the same thing. Okay, and we said that maybe yes, maybe no. We brought a raya that you could. We knocked off the raya, and then we had the Kida Amre, and we it wasn't absolute. It wasn't absolute. Okay, so boy minei. Let's see here. Next shaila. Back to the Gemara. So boy minei Abaye me Rabba. So now Abaya asked another shaila from Rabba. This is shaila number 2. What happens if you had the same issue according to Rabbi Yehuda, whose shear of separation we know extends beyond the normal rules of engagement, and he says you can go up to 13 and a third amis between one wall and the other. So shaila is, now that you have, let's say, a bigger separation than you're allowed to, so you go to 14 amas, 15 amas, whatever it might be, and now you got to clearly shorten the distance, right? So according to Rabbi Yehuda, who is definitely more lenient in this matter, and he allows you to go up to 13 and a third, but now you went above that, so now you got to put up something to close the gap. What's Allah? How do you close the gap? Shutin Ovid, must you make standalone walls to close that gap? Oh, but Yom de Mayrach. Okay, or you can even extend it with a Yomid, meaning just extend the L as long as you get to the number 13 and a third. That's a magic number. If you get there, you get there. So what do I care that you have to have a standalone situation or not? That's a shaila. So let's see Rashi for a minute. Rabbi Yehuda it kirshutin. Rabbi Yehuda never mentioned the word pashut, right? In the Mishnah, it was Rav Meir who said that you have to add pshutin. The Rabbi Yehuda never commented on that concept of a standalone wall. So, hi adifala. Which one is better for Rabbi Yehuda? Pshutin adifale. Do you say that standalone walls are better? Umruchakim and adyomdim yud gimel ama umevi akera bene vene. And if you have a big gap, you put the diomed 13 and a third amis. He said 13 amis. Umruchakim and adyomdim yud gimel ama umevi akera bene vene. Of osagi barochas yomdim. Do you say you have to put the standalone wall at a 13 amma, a little bit slightly more distance, and that is your way of narrowing the gap that's bigger than right now it's allowed to be? Does he specifically want that procedure of a standalone wall? Or arachas yom din adifa? Or maybe fakir, maybe extending is better. The lolesi avira, the high gisa levatla, because there is a problem with the standalone wall. You could really have too much space on either side. You can just devour. Remember, we had the idea when the space around you is bigger than you, then you get devoured by the open space, right? So one could argue, that's Rav Meir. You could argue that maybe Rabbi Yehuda says, I don't buy into this whole pasan business of standalone walls. I never said it. Now, Rabbi Yehuda, Rav Meir, who said it for sure, it's okay. The question was, can you also do the Yomed possibility? Okay, but now we're asking Rabbi Yehuda, who never mentioned the idea of a standalone wall. Maybe he doesn't buy into it altogether, and he says you're better off extending it. So what's the deal? Which one's better according to Rabbi Yehuda? So let's see. Let's learn a brisa, and from this brisa we should be able to derive the answer. Rabbah answers back to Abaye. So we're back in the Gemara now. How close can the walls be to the well before it loses its status of a allowable pasi biros? At this point, we'd be able to, if we took a little quiz on this, then we'd be able to answer these questions, hopefully, that they cannot be less than 2 amas close, right? You need the space for the head of the para and the majority of the animal, of the body of the animal. So okay, so check one. We got that. That's how close. That's the closest it could be is 2 amas. How far away could it be on the other side of the spectrum? If you want to make a real big corral and turn this into the Ponderosa and with a little well in the middle, how big can that place be and still be valid? So the answer is basically, go ahead. Afil krayim. You can make it a kur, which is 30 saws, or kurayim. Okay, it's a very large amount. Don't go for it. Doesn't make a difference. It's there's no real limit. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Beis Saim mutter Yosef Beis Saim aser. So the 2 saws is all you're allowed to according to Rabbi Yehuda. We had these 2 base saw concept. What was it again? 50,000 square amas, was it? So this is the limit according to Rabbi Yehuda. We had it by other cases about the horizontal with the vertical, when made a shvacha wall. But now he's introducing this limit even by pasi baros. Okay, so you can't go more than 2 saws as far as the allowance outwards. So he told Rabbi Yehuda, really? You have a limitation when it comes to pasi biros? I mean, I understand, Rabbi Yehuda. You certainly would agree with us that when it comes to a place where there's an intensified, place for the animals to fertilize a piece of field, they call it a fold for whatever reason. Okay, I guess probably that's why, because it's called that way. I guess in English, people who talk farm language, or that was by a deer or a sahar or just a big corral, a muksa, a place in the back like a backyard, chutzner, which is a courtyard in front of the homes. In all of these situations, if you're a wealthy guy and you got a lot of property and you are surrounding these things with walls to be able to carry on Shabbos, there's no limit, right? You can go as far as you want. So why would you limit a pasi biros, which is also essentially the same thing? We're here to spending Shabbos here, and we want to use this area to get water for the cows. What is the problem with extending it up to 10 kurim, 10 base cores? What's the problem? I'll tell you what the problem is. Zu mechitza ve'elu pasin. Okay, this is a mechitza and this is pasin. It's a different mechanism. Rabbi Yehuda answers back. How can you tell me that it's exact same thing? One is relying on L-shaped corners, and one is relying and leaving a very big gap, much bigger gap that I normally am allowed to leave. The other one is full-fledged mechitzas, right? Because none of those situations would work if you had more opening than closure. Would those places work? Right? Can you enclose a big corral with walls that are less wall than the open space? Of course not. So, but yet I'm allowing it by pasi baros. So clearly that's why I'm limiting the distance, because it's not the same. It's not the same situation. He says, Zumachitz elu pasin. Now now the Gemara is not proving its proof. Now we'll be able to derive from here that this is not that what Rabbi Yehuda holds when it comes to adding. What do you add? He says, what do you mean that one is pass and one's not? If you had to add the boards to close the gap, if you had a very big area like a base society or a base core, okay, which is much bigger, and you wanted to close the gap, what would you have to do? If you had to close the gap to the point and extend the L to close the gap to that 13 and a third amis, right? As opposed to Rav Meir's, the other side, forget Rav Meir, as opposed to the other side where you're allowed to put a standalone wall and have the 13 amma gap on either side. If you're doing that, that means you have to keep the enclosure literally physically enclosed. You have to keep adding it to the L-shaped situation until you get to 13 and third. It's exactly the same rules as it always was. You're not adding any leniency to it. The only leniency you'd be adding is if you're allowed to have a one amma wall within 13 and a third amas on either side. That would really get you into big leniency, because every single time you'd be adding a wall, one amma, you'd have so much more space on the side. But if you're closing it in by extending the wall, then you're not adding anything different than it was originally of 13 and a third amas. There's nothing more that you're going for. Why would that not be? So why would the language that he uses to respond be zu mechitza velu pasin? One's a real mechitza, one's pasin. If you're right, v'misa zu mechitza boile. It should have said they're both mechitzas, and you wouldn't call it a pas. Just a standalone wall that just standing there, which is a big leniency when you have all this open space. Why would you call it a mechitza? Because after all, it is as much of a mechitza as it always was. No matter how big you make it, you're going to have to always get down to 13 and a third. To which Gemara says, "Nice try, but it's not a proof." Why? Because I'll tell you, really, maybe it is a standalone wall that's put in every 13 amas. You put a standalone wall. Hachi kamar zu taras mechitza leha. Okay, this has the rules of a typical mechitza be'eser, and 10 amas is the limitation. That is on a normal situation, but not pasi bros. Pasi bros, I'm extending it more. Ve'elu taras pasir leim. This has rules of pasin, which is less than the 10. It's not a real mechitza. And its opening is 13 and a third. So all Rabbi Yehuda was trying to, even though the language didn't imply that, all Rabbi Yehuda was ultimately saying is, at the end of the day, the typical rules are 10. A pasi bros allows 13 and a third. That's enough of a difference for me to say there's a limit of two base saws. You can't go more than 2 base saws, and anything else would be unacceptable. But it's not about the fact that we have so much more open space and closed space. That idea is not going to is not what Rabbi Yehuda meant, and therefore we have no proof regarding Rabbi Yehuda's position about a standalone wall versus an extension of the Yomnin. Okay, let's do Rashi. So it's a second shaila that we haven't really proven. I mean, the first in the Iked Amre we sort of proved it from the language, but I wouldn't call it a slam dunk proof. But here we certainly haven't proven it, because we just said you can look at it another way. So let's take a look at Rashi. How close are the walls allowed to be to the bar to make it to allow it to still be a valid pasi bros? And the answer was 2 amas, the amount of the head and the majority of the cow. Afilu kur, how far away could it be? So the Tanakame held afilu sharba pasin uvavat sharba pas. As long as you keep the distance of 10. You can go as far as you want to go. You can make it as big as you want to make it. Just keep that concept of a wall 10 amas. A wall 10 amas, because that's the leniency of pasi bros. We're not looking at the requirement of more wall than opening, right? The requirement is more, and as long as you don't have 10, the corners do it for you. Okay, and then obviously you have to add along the way, as long as every 10 you add a wall, but at the end, but you're certainly going to have more opening than closure after it all settles.
Could you go over the head and the majority of the body? Is there a picture up there about that? I don't really.
Yeah, right there.
So what is it really saying?
You have to be able, from the well to the wall,
Yeah.
right? From the well to the wall, you need to be able to fit the head of the cow and the majority of his body within the wall, you see the tuchus is sticking out there. So, okay, so that's okay. As long as the back end of the para is sticking out, I'm not going to go crazy. But the majority has to be within, let's say you move those corners in more, where now only the head would only have room for the head and maybe a little bit of the neck, but nothing else. Everything else is beyond the wall. That would be unacceptable.
It's too cramped. It's too cramped of the space between.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's not. I mean, yeah, I'm not sure the word cramped is the right word. Just you're not. In other words, you're sticking too far out.
Yeah.
I mean, you still have plenty of space between the wall and the cow,
Yeah,
but you're sticking too far out beyond, and we're afraid that in facilitating the drinking of the cow, you're going to be moving stuff beyond the wall, and that is a problem, right? Because if you're standing there, if you're the guy,
the cow's not drinking from the well. You're going to put a bucket in there and take it out, right? And then give the bucket to the cow to drink the water.
so if you're facilitating that, it's so easy for you to just go over that area, because you have to make an imaginary line that you cannot cross the wall.
Yeah.
Right? You have to draw an imaginary line from one L to the other L, and that's where you can carry.
Okay.
So if you're going to make it too close, you're gonna go above that line, beyond that line.
It's the same thing with most of your head and body in the sukkah.
Yeah, I got it.
And the table's not in the sukkah. It's the same problem.
Okay.
Okay, this is Stockton 101. Okay.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so let's go weiter. Next Rashi, Afilu Kur, we said Ovashi Abapasin, and Rabbi Yehuda says, no, I don't buy into this concept. You can go as wide as you want to go. Yosef Beis Yisayim also, you can't go more than two Beisos. Shezeh Shir Kol Hekef Shelo Kitiknoi or Kitikunoi. This is the shear of any weak, fundamentally limited type of walls that are shvach, like we said, the horizontal walls, we said the vertical walls. That's not a real wall. It's a makeshift kind of deal. When you're doing lower level kind of things, then you were going to limit it to two saws, the 50,000 square armor deal. Okay, really? Says back the Chacham to Rabbi Yehuda, what about a deer, Muka Fladira, Shara Darsham Balayla? It's surrounded for living quarters because the shepherd lives there at night. So people do live out in the field, in these areas. Zumachitza, and the answer is, hello, how could you compare all these cases, the Chatzar, the Mavu, not the Mavu, the Chatzar, the Muksa, the deer and the sahar, these four types of things, they're all mechitza shlema. Rabbi Yehuda answers back. At the end of the day, they're valid enclosures because there's more space, there's more wall than space. Okay, there's more gedder than there is parrots. Okay, on the other hand, but here it's different. So bottom line is, you haven't proven, we thought that from the language of Rabbi Yehuda you can prove that they are standalone walls, because if they're not standalone walls, then you don't have such a big leniency. It's the same leniency you always had of 13 and a third, because you're extending the wall till you get to 13 and a third. So we thought that was, Rabbi Yehuda never meant that. He meant standalone wall, to which we responded, no, Taka could mean an extension. It only meant was there is still a leniency here. At the end of the day, Pasi Bros is a leniency, because you normally do not allow more than 10 amas. Okay, actually, no, okay, we're still in Rashi. I'm sorry, I thought that was Viter. Let's keep going. Ve'elu pasanein. What he should have said was, what he did say was, this is a pas and this is a mechitza. Ubein kol echad v'echad shosh esrei amas. Between each of these walls, this is the havamina now of what we thought Rabbi Yehuda is saying, that between each of these walls you have a gap of 13 and a third. Ve'inu oimid pas amma, and the standalone wall is only an amma. So you're getting bombarded all over the place with more open space than closed space in those, if it was a big, a big corral, which required many, many boards. Ben kol shosh esrei amma, and all you need is one amma between every 13 and third ammas. Okay, ben kol shosh esrei ushlosh esrei ushlish esrei. What? Ben kol shosh esrei mean right between every 13 ammas there's a wall. Right? If you had 2,000 ammas in each direction. So what are you going to do? According to the way Rebuta sounds, you go 13 wall, 13 wall, 13 wall, 13, and now how much is each wall? 1 amma. So every single time as you make it bigger and bigger, you're being outnumbered 13 to 1. So that is a very good argument to say I limit the distance because look at the opening that you're allowing here. It's ridiculous. Alma Rebuta, Alma Rebuta, pshutin of it. Right? So it must be based on Rabbi Yehuda's language that Rabbi Yehuda is allowing is independent standalone walls. Dibid Yomdin, Mayrich, Hamachitzi. Right? Because if you are extending the Diomed, the L-shaped, and all you have is only 1 13 and a third gap, well, that's the same gap you had all along. I thought a special leniency over here on Mechitza. It's a valid Mechitza based on the rules of Pasi Bros. Okay? So the answer is nice try. It's a good attempt. But what Rebuta meant was not that there's tons of more open space than there is closed space. That's not what he meant. What he meant to say is that there's a fundamental leniency of Pasi Bros in one small respect. That normally it's 10. Here it's 13 and a third. And if there's a level of leniency of 13 and a third that I'm allowing, I'm therefore going to limit it to two base saws. I'm not allowing you to go more based on that leniency, not the leniency that you're allowing tons more open space than closed space. Okay, upertzasa oseres biosim yeser. Here, the pirza messes you up in a typical wall, in a typical place. The pirza messes you up if it's more than 10. Ve'ilutars pasalayim. But here, we're going to allow the rules of pasin to work. V'yeshud gimel amma bein harocha l'rocha. And there is 13 and a third amis that we're allowing you between each L-shaped situation. Therefore, I am going to limit it, even though you're right, it's not like a big difference, but there is a difference. The difference is 10 to 13 and a third. That's a difference. Okay, and that leniency is what Rebuta says it compels me to limit you to not as far as you want to go. Can't go 5 cores, 10 cores worth of space. You limit it to 2 base saws. So you got your 50,000 square amas, and that's all you got. You want to go beyond that, you cannot.
But why? I mean, it sounds like, well, I have a gut feeling, but there's no...
More than a gut feeling. It's already an inherent leniency that we're allowing you to make those L-shaped crops 13 and a third amas away. So the gap is bigger than it's normally allowed to be. So once the gap is bigger than it's normally allowed to be, I'm not going to give you another leniency. Not another leniency. I'm not going to give you the distance you normally would allow for things that are following mainstream rules. This is a leniency. Once it's a leniency, I'm going to limit it to 2 saws. I'm not going to give you that much space. I guess maybe to make it more, more apparent that it's unique. Why would he do it? It seems like once we're, too many leniencies and too many things we're not going to give you. At least in Rabbi Yehuda's mind, I'm already going far.
One on the wall after every 10 isn't also kind of a leniency?
Well, in Rav Meir,
right.
Well, if say Rav Meir, but it wasn't Rav Meir who held that you don't. Rav Meir learn like the Tanakama. You want to know why didn't Rav Meir also fight about the fact you can't go as far as you want to go?
An eventual limit, right?
Well, maybe he held like Gary. Why? What's the difference? Bottom line is, once I'm allowing this 10, the 10 amma. Once I'm saying that if you limit the walls to 10 amas, Pasi Bros allows you, more open space. That is anyway. In other words, on a test, what is the leniency of Pasi Bros? Okay, so according to Rabbi Yehuda, is the second leniency of 13 and a third. But according to Rav Meir, what's the leniency of Pasi Bros? Even though there's a limit 10, the limit is that even though you're 10 amas but you have way more open space and closed space, right? So that is the one limit. So once you allow that, then why would you say you're limited to only 2 saws? Why not go as far as you want? That's the concept of allowing wells to be surrounded with more open space and closed space. That is a fundamental leniency. So Ramey just takes that and says, once you allow that leniency, who cares how big you make it? Well, Rabbi Yehuda says, no, I'm allowing you a leniency of also 13 and a third, so then I'm that already, I'm not going to allow you to go as wide as you want to go. Then you're limited to, but that's, again, you could.
The whole point of this is a watering hole. This is, you're
right.
supposed to bring your behemoths here.
Okay, but I guess if a guy has a really big, amount of cows, Right.
This isn't a cattle drive. This is either they're using the cattle to pull your wagons, or they're being taken. Unless I guess you have a lot of Beiras that give you a lot of kabonas. They got a cattle drive going. I mean, how many cattle are you going to bring for the as kabonas?
Yeah, here. Okay, but
Depends on where you're from, man.
well, if each guy has, if you have like 100 people coming and each one has a bunch of cows, because like you say, maybe he's got a lot of chattas that he built up over the years.
Well,
Anyway,
a year and a half to bring it.
yeah, mice. It's not even a chattas because if you're being Oli Regel, you're bringing, the Davis. This guy is a very generous guy. He wants to outdo, at Simchas Torah when they pledge how many.
Yes.
Shlomim you're going to bring. So
He needs a lot of space for the
Right, but the idea of this whole it's a watering hole for the behemoths.
I understand,
They made basically kulas so you could get your
Right,
water
so one kula-
you could get the water.
Oh yeah, so one cooler Rabbi Yehuda did not allow to make it. You can make it as big as you want. It's exactly what they're arguing about. Did you also we made a cooler in the wall about the space in the walls? Are we going to make another cooler? You can make this as big as you want. And Rabbi Yehuda says no.
Some Jew will have one watering hole. You have this massive estate and say, I don't need a fence.
Yeah, myself, you're also thinking about the fact this might be a watering hole for thousands upon thousands of Jews, who are traveling. So you might there definitely is motivation to make it as big as you can make it, But Rabbi Yehuda says no. Rabbi Yehuda says you can't. Okay, that's shalom number 2. You don't see tissues here, do you?
What's that?
Oh, right behind me. Baruch Hashem. Okay, I got it. So, shalom number 3. Let's keep going here. Boimene Abai Merabah. Baya asked Rab another shaila. Teila mislake asara mitoich abba nidam mishum diomed oena nidam mishum diomed. Do you have to actually have L-shaped walls? Is that what you need? Or maybe it's good enough if you have a mound, which you can carve out from that mound an L-shaped situation, like you're seeing in 13. Okay, that's maybe good enough, because you have the height and the length of what you need to make it valid. So, okay, what's the shear? In terms of the height, in terms of, when you have a mound like that, if you can have 10 tefachim high, less than 4 amos distance out, that's your shear of a steep enough slope that would make it apparently a wall. Make it apparent that it's a wall there, even though it's part of a mound. But the carving out to see the wall only works if it's 10 tefachim high within a 4 amma or less distance of the slope. So Amalei, which he responded, Tinisua. Let's take a look. We learned in a brisa, Reb Shimon ben Elazar Omer, Haisisham Evim Ruvas. If you had a square stone, in the corner of the Pasi Bros, and you wanted that to be one of your corners to be cropped out to make it legit as a diomed, Rowan kol she'ilu techolek v'yesh ba'amal lakan v'amal lakan idim mishum diomed. So if you can carve it out and you could see if there's enough of a distance of 1 amma by 1 amma within that stone, then you're good to go. Then everything is good. But if it's not that way, and you can't find a big enough area to carve out 1 amma by 1 amma, then it's not going to work. Okay, that's who? That's the Tanakama, which is Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon Elazar. Shimon Elazar says that you have a square stone. If you can carve it out, there's enough there to carve out 1 amma by 1 amma, an L-shaped situation, then you're good. Rabbi Yishmael ben Yochum ben Breiko Emer, Haisisham Evan Agula, even if you had a round stone, forget about a square stone, which is easier, but a round stone requires 2 aspects, 2 things that you have to do to get it to be L-shaped. You first have to square it, and then you got to carve it. Okay, I guess to carve it out of the circle already is too complicated. So Rowan kol shilu techokek v'ticholek v'yesh ba'amal kan v'amal kan nidam mishum diomed. Okay, so if you could if you could square it out and then carve it out, then yes, then you're good to go, even by round. The Tanakama of Shimon Elazar seemed to say only by a square or rectangular situation, while according to Rabbi Yishmael ben Oishel B'Yocham ben Broika, he says even by a round. My comifli, what?
The mountain was round, and they didn't square it up before they made the walls. So what difference does it make here if it's round?
Okay, well maybe, it's a good point. Maybe that's dafka according to Rabbi Shmuel.
As long as you can see the walls, the L-shaped wall, because that was what the mound was saying,
Yeah, well, I hear. So, that's exactly, the mound was a Bayis Shaila to Rabbah. The Brisa is Rabbah's response. Let's see. Okay, but my comifili, what are they arguing about? Marsava, Chad Ro and Arminon, Trey Ro and Lo Arminon. One says, if it's one visual, a sort of extension I have to make to carve out visually that amount, I'll do. It's done in one step, but Trey Roy and Lo Arminon. But to go double and to sort of have to carve out and do too much imagination, that I'm not going to do. If it's a second imaginary step, a first squaring it and then carving it, that already is going too far. So, Chadron Arminon, Treyron, Lo Arminon, Umasava Filo Treyron, Nami Arminon. And the other one says you do even two. So exactly, that's the point. That Trey Rowan, which you're asking me about a Tel HaMislake, which requires two Rowans, that's exactly Machlokes Tanoim. See, where your shaila is answered by a brisa, and the answer is, depends what you hold like. That's going to be your response. Okay, take a look at Rashi. Tel HaMislake, right? It's the second wide line. Yud Tfachim. Okay, a mound that slopes 10 tfachim in height. Okay, downwards. Bitoch Dalit Amis. Okay, within the area of 4 amas, that's the formula that we had just said, that you need the slope to be 10 tfachim high within a 4 am or less area. Mitoch dal amas tel meshufak sas. Okay, it's slanted partially. Okay, aval madrono zokuf. Okay, but it's a slope is high enough. Before you get to dal amas of distance of walking. It will actually rise to the level of 10 tfachim. So you need a 40-inch rise approximately within a 8-foot, let's being machmir, an 8-foot area. Okay, mitok dalid, and that's why it needs to be within 4 amis. It was very, very slopey, and it was like a narrow slope. And it wouldn't get 10 high until you traveled more than 4 amis. Even if it ends up going very, very high. Right, if Mount Baldy or something, okay, it would be very, very high, but it would be so wide that you'd have to travel more than 4 amas for every 10 tfachim to get to that height. We would look at that as just being an extension of the ground. That would not be viewed as as a wall that we can use as a wall. But here, when you have more intensified slope, then you're good to go. Okay, murvas. So the next Tana adds, even if it's circular. This is the first one. This is the squared one. Amalama. All you need is to smoothen it out, where it's a square amma 1 by 1. You take the thickness out from between them. But the also kamer zav doifin, lakan, lakan. You make it something like some kind of pipe kind of thing, or whatever they would use there on these roofs that was similar to these L-shaped situations. That's exactly what you have. All you've got to do is make one carving out of the rock, and then you're good to go. Agula. On the other hand, if it's round, b'chuseres chakika lichkoik v'lito blitas igul ulahashvois emsa lepeosel. The first thing you have to do is carve out all the circular stuff that extends beyond. Right, I guess visually, even though ultimately it's really one carving. Bottom line, you can just carve out from a piece of pie, right? You don't have to first square the pie and then carve it out. But it's a greater psychological extension that you're doing when you're doing it this way, and therefore it's seen as a bigger step. Okay, and then so the first step you do in your mind is to square it off and to make it smooth. And then you got to carve it out. So since it's a double step, it might be going too far. So Amrina Nami Treyroin, Rabbi Shmuel V'Tel Nami Ke'evin Agula Dami. Exactly like Michael said, a mound is exactly like a round stone. The Tanakama Amrina Treyroin. The Tanakama says no. Rabbi Shmuel says yes, and with this we'll pick it up tomorrow. Shkoyach.